Hey everybody, it's Gretchen Jordan and from Alive, and I want to thank you all for coming today to our recap of the hybrid conference. And I'm really pleased to have a great panel of people who were actual attendees at the event. And we're waiting for one more participant, and if he is not here, that's okay. Maybe he is here. Is that, let's see, I'm looking at the panelists. Oh, he's still arriving. So I'm going to open up the chat box. So as always, if people would like to put into the chat box any questions, I didn't set up any polls today because this is going to be just, like I said, a very informal event. And we're just glad you're all here. I see a lot of familiar names and some people were able to attend the conference. And so I'm really keen on getting your input as well. So feel free to put anything into the chat box that you like. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. And we'll get started here in just a moment. First, I'd like you all to confirm that you can see my screen and not my presenter's screen. Okay, wonderful. So first, I'll just jump right in. So our agenda, I'm going to just give a short overview of the event and talk about the highlights of the conference, and then I'll kick it over to our panel, and they'll all each have a few minutes to talk from their perspective, and then questions from anybody. And then we'll talk just a brief announcement about next year's event. And so we'll just jump right in. And I just put up, in case of trying to, you know what they say about advertising, if you see something 7 times, you'll remember it. So maybe if you had not signed up for the conference, maybe you saw this flyer. So this is just a quick overview. This is our 6th year of doing a hybrid conference in partnership with Better Impact and the Volunteer Management Professionals of Canada. And we have been able to form a great team and as well as assemble a terrific set of presenters and a facilitator for this year as well. So our presentation for this year, our team, and our theme was all about managing risk, balancing aversion, and innovation. So we had Lindsay Baker, CVA, and she is the manager of the Vancouver Aquarium. And her presentation was about taking smart risks and piloting innovation. Jennifer Bennett, who you may know as the training director for Volunteer Match, talked about is soft risk hiding in your volunteer engagement strategy. And Lori Gottlieb of Canada talked about safe and sound volunteer management checkup for your volunteer program. And then Sarah Oliveri talked about managing risk through program design. And I think each of our panelists will have a little bit more to talk about some of those highlights. Now, if you haven't attended before, just a brief overview. We do the same content over 2 days because we're trying to catch all the time zones. When you broadcast live, it is tricky to capture everybody in the time zones where they're at. So Tuesday, we broadcasted to the Pacific and Mountain times. And then Wednesday, it was Atlantic, Eastern, and Central times. And we had a great guest speaker, or I'm sorry, a couple of guests also, who got up at like midnight to come and tune in from Australia. So we were pretty excited to have them as well. And I see all of our panelists are here. Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming, Richard. And I just wanted to, like I said, give a quick overview. And in the past, this would have been an event where we would have been live streaming to host committees all over the United States and Canada. But because of the pandemic, most everyone was limited to either very small groups or just a viewing from home. And so our folks at Better Impact, who generally manage that technology piece, were great in coming up with a new way to live stream the conference through a overall streaming technology and then out through all of these various Zoom meetings. And basically how Tony did that was he rented like 20 laptops, and then that's how he hosted all the individual meeting or the host sites. And then we did individual registrations, which was new this year. And then I was the host for all of the individual registrations. And it was a blast connecting with people from all over the US and Canada And I think we had some really great networking, and I've been looking at some of the feedback from some of the individual attendees, and I was really happy to see that they had a really great experience. One thing we're really trying to do is make this, professional yet personal. And one of the things we're really striving to is, when you go into a online conference, and I've done a few, and I'm expecting that some of you have as well, it's pretty one-sided. There's just not a chance really to have that small group discussion and connect in a small and personal way. And we're really trying hard to continue that. Now, I don't know what we'll be doing for next year. Who knows? I'm fresh out of crystal balls, but we're going to make every effort to improve on this format if this is what we do next year, or even improve on the format, hopefully for next year, if we are able to have host sites that can meet in person. So I'm going to jump right in and talk with our panelists a little bit. And I'd like to introduce Brenda from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And she participated as a host site from Tulsa Live. And they did a home watch party. So Brenda, go ahead and unmute yourself. And I would just like you to give your thoughts, and then I'll just ask you some of the questions that we had talked about. And we'll take, 7 or 8 minutes. And then I'm watching the chat box. If everybody or anyone has a question specifically for Brenda about her thoughts or feedback, go right ahead. And I'm going to pull up her screen because this is a great picture. They hosted a watch party. I just thought it was awesome how they did this. So Brenda, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. This was the 4th year Tulsa Live hosted, and Tulsa Live is just 3 years old, so it's kind of curious. I guess we're going to be 4 years old in January. And we promoted this as our being the regional host since the date was announced for the Central U.S. So that's been months now. We did a Facebook event with the Eventbrite registration, fairly consistent emails in our monthly Zoominars, and those are going to continue for foreseeable future, like everybody else, I guess. Promoting the conference and this fabulous ongoing adult learning opportunity that was going to be shared with so many of us from all across the globe. We weren't sure that the Eventbrite link became visible early enough through Alive and the conference website and marketing, though, which may or may not have made a difference. I probably should have sent that as soon as it was created. We didn't. We did plan an in-person event at Tulsa Area United Way. They were perfectly comfortable with that, but there was going to be a maximum capacity that would be allowed so that they could space us all well distanced. And of course it would have been a masked event also, as everything is now masked events. Mm-hmm. It was apparent though, as Oklahoma's corona cases continued to climb, that our members said, not gonna, we're going virtual, and we will plug in from wherever we are at that time. So even with that vote, it was disappointing that a greater number of our own members and local VEIPs did not register to participate. We keep everything positive though, and we're plumb tickled when count them two from Texas, yay, Karina and Becca, plugged in with us though, because their organizations opted out of being hosts. So we rocked it with Oklahoma and Texas. The planning calls were fabulous, so thank you, Gretchen, for offering all of those to us. At least one of us tried to be involved in as many of those as possible, and that allowed us to really get ourselves together in drilling down for our locals how exactly they could register and how we were going to pull this off in a much larger Zoominar setting than what we had been doing every month. The curiosity though was how on earth Tony was going to do that from Canada. So it was fun to watch how it finally rolled out. One of our officers collected door prizes from a local organization. So those were all prepared and ready to be offered, and members who are local will go retrieve those items from her, and then something will be put into the mail, I believe, for Karina. Karina will tell us probably what she won. I don't know that I have that right in front of me, but we also offer the memberships. She got the shirt. Yes, it was a cool Meals on Wheels shirt, right? Yes, yes, indeed. Yep.
Great.
We also gave away the Alive and Tulsa Alive membership scholarships for this next year. And we did a simple numbered everyone or pulled names out of the hat, which kept it pretty easy to track. Our registration fee this year was $35, and we have had that fee at a greater amount in the past, which also included refreshments and lunch. This year we did include branded masks. So you see there in that photo that we now have Tulsa Alive masks. So we're safe wherever we go, whatever we do. And those two of them were mailed to our Texas peeps, but the others were hand delivered so that they could be ready to safely and securely protect our participants from wherever they were plugging in. We did email the handbook and the login links in advance. So from the time Gretchen sent those to us, we did a couple of emails just reminding everybody, here's your materials to print out and have in advance for note taking. And here are your masks and also the login so that you can be ready to roll. The majority of our folks did print the handbook. So there was some, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much material this is. It's awesome. And then we're looking forward to receiving the graphics and the great slides that had so much powerful information in them. I think though, the note-taking was pretty fantastic because it helped guide us in our breakouts and the dialogue and conversations and pulling everybody together from afar. The majority of our registrants were in office or working from home offices, so the three of us who huddled around a 6-foot table decided we were going to be right here and have everything that Tony was managing from behind the great curtain of Oz. Everything was up on the big TV, but we had the laptop so that we could be a little more close and personal with our local peeps or our registrants, a little more cozy and intimate. The laptop moved from the island to the table, and as you can see, Scott is a major photo taker and was doing major tweeting through the works. So you will find more photos on our Facebook page Alive Tulsa, and also on Twitter. So 10 of us were registered and are logged in and ready to go at 8 o'clock, which is what we had told them to do. And it was a bit of a stumble, though, that we weren't able to connect. So we spent that time emailing and texting each other. It's okay, just hang on. We were waiting for the host to start the meeting. So that was kind of disappointing because we really wanted to charge everybody up and make sure we were ready for some major learning. We didn't realize that the delays between the sessions might be quite so quick and or long. We weren't quite sure how those were going to work, but we finally got it. We think as we made it through the day, some of our conversations were mid-sentence. So if we were able to have that timer, that countdown on every session, right, whether it's Faiza when she is sharing, or our moderator or our presenters, or the Q&As and then the breakouts, that would probably be helpful for next year because we might just have gotten everybody up to a spot and then kablooey. Lindsay laid out everything beautifully in her session. I'm not going to hit everyone's, but we know that Sarah's session as our last session kind of lost some folks. So it It took some doing to get everybody pulled back together in maximizing the trellis and the programming. And all in all, I think everybody left feeling charged that it is good to take risks, smart risks. Awesome. We had some drawing out in the breakouts just because I think everybody was trying to process, and then whenever the delays occurred and bam, here we were. Next year, next time, we will pre-assign, which is what we've done with our in-person. We will pre-assign a registrant to be the facilitator for each of those breakouts and keep everybody plugged in and engaged in a broader way in those transitions. Faiza moderated beautifully, conversational, professional, as fun as the TED Talk meets talk show format has been in the past. Faiza kept things rolling and transitioning well. I was kind of amazed at her energy level all the way through. So she may need some good Canadian beer or something. I don't know. You all choose what we send to her. The handbook was great, again, for guiding our far-flung, and some of us were visible and some of us were audible, but it kept everything on track so that we weren't really losing peeps at any point. Bottom line, takeaway, no fear. If whatever hits us next time, we may be in person. I don't know. We may be like Gretchen and just hanging out in Disney World land, whatever.
Great.
Or, you know, we don't know. So no fear. And we're going to take the risks here in the middle, even though we are iced in and still in freezing weather here. You see me, I'm snuggled up in front of the fireplace. It's all about getting this information to our volunteer engagement professionals, our VEEPs. That's what we call everybody here. They're a VEEP. And we have a handful of CVAs who are committed to making that happen. So whatever we come up with the future, Tulsa Live will be open to hosting.
That is great. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. And I'm looking, if there are questions for Brenda, if you want to pass them along later, we'll ask at the end as well. But I want to go ahead and go to my next slide and introduce the next person, Alana Napau. Hope I said that right. You're going to tell me. And she's logging in from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she participated as an individual. So go ahead.
Yeah, that was really great. I know when the conference was first being planned, there was some question of whether that would be an option, and I was so thrilled that that was the decision. I think as we saw that the pandemic wasn't going anywhere anytime soon, that really made it very feasible. And in past years, I would always attend at the local site that was hosting it, which was Eastern Michigan University in my area. And they always did a beautiful job. I'm sure they did again this year if they hosted. But I have not been going many places. So I've been attending a lot of webinars and conferences online, as we all have, I'm sure. So it was just really great to have this option. I was able to curl up in front of a fireplace too, Brenda. So I really appreciated that.
That's great. So tell me a little bit about what were some of your biggest takeaways from the day?
I want to start by just thanking the conference planners for choosing risk management as the topic. Basically, it's something that, as many of the speakers acknowledge, isn't talked about enough amongst volunteer managers, and I believe, and it's something that needs every bit of attention that it gets. So one of my biggest takeaways that I really appreciated was sort of this overarching theme of empowerment. That's how I interpreted it. Basically equipping viewers with the tools and practical ideas and ways to think through and evaluate their current programs that we would need to really tangibly and practically move forward after the conference. Especially in areas where there was discussion around screening of volunteers and addressing issues as they arose in a timely manner. I think that those are topics that that can be challenging for a lot of us. A lot of us work in cultures where there's a lot of emphasis on letting everyone in the door because we need everyone, and so having someone to really say, no, you really can enact these types of practices for your risk management, I think was really encouraging. And also the emphasis on the need to gain the buy-in of upper leadership within our organizations, because sort of what I was alluding at with the screening is that there are many organizations, some of us may be part of them or have been in the past, where upper leadership does not recognize the need for risk management within our discipline. So just even the fact that the presenters were rewinding enough to put that out there as a starting point, I really appreciated.
Oh, that's wonderful. Was there any particular presenter that really resonated with you, their message?
You know, I really liked Lori's talking about a lot of the more concrete hard risks, but I also really appreciated Jennifer's on soft risk. And I've seen that one a couple times through Volunteer Match, and I love it every time. I get something new from it every time, especially with the example she gave at the pet shelter. And I think that kind of led me to another thought process or idea, which is that, you know, with that, the pet example, if you recall, it was where the volunteer made up a story to a potential adopter that was completely fictitious about how the dog would be euthanized if this adopter didn't, you know, sign on the dotted line right then and there. Yeah. And it brought up sort of this idea for me that no matter how well prepared and thought out and evaluated our risk assessment program is, there will be situations that will arise that no one could have anticipated because they're so far out of our purview of what could occur in reality. And I think that was such a great example of, you know, it would be hard to identify the warning signs of a volunteer doing that, I think, in an interview. So I think just leaving with the idea of giving ourselves some grace, knowing that things will come up, and that these risk management practices we develop in our organizations are an evolving, a living process, and just acknowledging that and not, you know, holding it against ourselves too much if a situation arises that we didn't anticipate.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any particular, you know, one or two things that you might do differently that, you know, from now on after your experience in the conference?
Yes, I would really like to take a look at my program from a soft risk perspective. I'd like to refine and standardize some of the volunteer interview screening across my org. We're a statewide organization, so there are multiple people in the same role in different locations. So I'd love to really take a look at that as a department and sort of tighten that up. And I would love actually a further exploration of what are red flags in a volunteer interview, you know, because it could be that one person sees something as a red flag that someone else doesn't, or vice versa, and what isn't, you know. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure to have you on the conference too as an individual. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen. Oh, and I have just a quick screenshot there. And this is what people saw during some of the panel discussions. So the format was that each of the speakers presented individually, And then we did breakouts into small groups. And then all of the panelists that came together, and FISA did a wonderful job of facilitating that discussion and answering questions submitted by all of the attendees, as well as questions that FISA had. And she was very thoughtful and did a wonderful job of putting things together. But that's an example of kind of what that looked like. Thank you so much, Alana. So now we're going to talk and hear from Richard. And Richard, it's great to see you. And again, it's just so exciting and energizing for me, for all of you that I've emailed with countless times, to be able to see you. This is close to as in person as I can get today, but it's just a thrill to have you here. So thank you. Richard's logging in from Wilmington, Delaware, and they participated as a host site of DAVA. That's the Delaware Association of Volunteer Administrators. So Richard, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sounding great.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my voice is a little hoarse, but I do apologize. But anyway, I wanted to thank you so much, first of all, just with the tech support, the fact of all the trainings that you guys offered. I thought you guys did a wonderful job of just keeping us all on the same page. I'm somebody that I don't think of things till the moment of, but I feel like you covered all the bases with everything as far as, you know, what we needed and how we were going to do it. And I even did call the day of, you know, just, I know we had a little delay in logging on, which was no fault of anybody's, but just the response time and the fact you got us all up and running, I thought it was just wonderful. So I do want to thank you, first of all. And I don't know, I just feel like I want to start out by saying, as part of DAVA, we also partnered with the Northern Virginia Association of Volunteer Administration. It was kind of first, yeah, it was our first big joint sharing the conference together. And it was just wonderful to work with them and to work with you. And, you know, it was just such a positive day. Like, I mean, we're all dealing with so much right now. And to be able to have all of these wonderful speakers come on and tie the different ways of managing risk. I think, you know, I read everybody's bios and looked through the handbook, but I didn't know till it was fully presented how it was all going to tie in together. And I think just seeing it all come in, it really, I don't know, it helped us all think outside of the box, but then also kind of like step back and look at ourselves and our programs and start thinking, okay, how are we going to reevaluate? And I don't know, I can't pick a favorite because the energy across the board I thought was there. And also I thought FISA did a wonderful job as moderator. I mean, the way that she kind of segued into everything and then came back and regrouped with everybody, it was just such a positive day. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed a lot too was the breakout sessions. The speakers, of course, first and foremost, but the breakout sessions were wonderful because it randomized each time. So it wasn't the same breakout session with the same people. Like when you're hosting it, you might have everybody at the same table together, where we were able to kind of, you know, meet and talk with new people each time. And well, I knew some of our DAVA members, you know, meeting with some of the Northern Virginia members and talking with them and learning what they did. And then also getting their take on each of the discussion questions. I don't know, it was really cool. And, you know, I don't know, I just think that we learn more about each other. We learn more from our presenters. So I don't know, I had a extremely positive experience the whole day. Of course, DAVA was hosting. We had 3 of our board members each hosting and kind of like, you know, working together. But it was kind of neat to do the takeaway this year and do it on a virtual platform, because years before, I mean, I'm not trying to make this sound bad, but we had always been worried about, okay, the food, the lunch break, all the fight we were going to have. And this year we could kind of take out that part of it and just focus in on the virtual platform. And I feel like we got more out of it this year.
That's great. About how many people did you have attend?
I think at the peak it was around 32, which last year we had like 24, 25. So we even increased it this year, which I thought was great.
Wonderful. So from your perspective as, you know, in your role, I know you're involved with a government organization. So what are your thoughts and I know I've also used to work for a government organization. And so I know that can be a lot of structure. And, you know, when you would like to come in with these new concepts and ideas and people that you may pitch it to, it's like, you know, so what are some concrete takeaways for you that you know, will hopefully be some real life assistance for you?
Well, I think one of the big things, and I'm sorry, I did take a few little notes here because there was so much in it, but I think the big takeaway was from Jennifer's presentation on soft risk. One of the things that stands out to me was it was talking about, basically like the risks you can have. Well, I don't think I do the best job or the most wonderful job in my volunteer program. There are things I need to work on, and we all do. But one of the things that I realized she said was like from a top-down level, sometimes the powers that be, they don't necessarily realize what all you're doing on your level and how important the volunteers are. And one of the things I know that is we run a resource center where we produce accessible materials for the blind and visually impaired students in Delaware. So our volunteers help put together the Braille books. They help large print and expand books. And a lot of times we are kind of, I hate to say it like this, but we are the people in the basement. We kind of are hidden.
Oh.
The program's hidden. We don't get the, and not that we're trying to do that. We're trying to do it for the mission, but
Sure.
sometimes you don't get the upper level understanding exactly what all goes into this. And I think one of the things she was saying in that is like, to try to find ways to, get the directors and your managers and things to understand more of that. And from that, I kind of want to take a step back and look at it and say, okay, maybe it's a weekly newsletter. Maybe it's a weekly narrative. Maybe we should attend some meetings and let them know what we're doing. And I know those are the soft risk things that can really hurt a program if you don't kind of make awareness to what we're doing. And sometimes people can feel forgotten and the motivation and productivity can go down. So that was one of the big things that stood out to me. I'm like, wow, that actually really ties in here. And that's something I want to work on in the future.
Well, that's great. Is there something, and you talked a little bit about Jennifer's presentation, and earlier Brenda had talked about Sarah's presentation, and that concept seemed to be a little trickier for people to get about, and that whole thing was about managing outcomes and not managing people. And I wondered if in discussion groups, if that was something that people had, was that a revelation for them? Did people feel like, yes, this is something I can really take back and start trying to do?
And I did have some stuff on that too from our discussions. One of the things too that we had a 50-50 on it because some people were like, they were more saying, well, we need to focus on our people and make sure that they're happy and they're motivated and they're doing what they're doing. And I think on my side of things, or like a couple other people, and I don't want to just speak for myself, I'm looking at the fact that maybe we need to reevaluate how we create these materials in here and the processes that go into it. Maybe there's a way that the structure can be different so that people or volunteers can be more independent. So it might be as simple as some of us rewriting our policies and procedures, the way we handle the trainings, the way the outcome can be more positive. But I think what we were kind of not conflicting with, but some were like, well, sometimes it's better to have the person happy or the volunteer happy versus the program. You'll still get a productive thing out of it. So I think we were kind of torn. I don't know if that makes much sense. I'm kind of rambling, but I think it is like over the end goal of getting the production done versus the happiness of the volunteer. And that's where we were kind of torn.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are, trainers and folks who really feel it is more about managing people. But one thing I think that the organizing committee really liked about Sarah's presentation is just, coming from a little outside of the profession, but bringing that concept, to, for us as a profession, because sometimes we can get a little siloed and we want to bring in those new, bigger ideas that may be a little different, and how can people use that? And maybe sometimes they won't, and that's really okay, but it's all about bringing in new ideas, because that may spark using that idea or as a jumping off point for something else. And in terms of, I know, and Dava has been great about participating for the past few years, and we really appreciate your support with that. And is there, in terms of what other people have been talking about, they really enjoyed this online experience. Is that, and I know when I've talked with your colleague, Angela, and we've talked about Delaware, and, it's not this big expanse like other states may be. And, it may be a little easier for people to come together. But do you think that people were comfortable in that environment where they were able to really still feel connected, even though they weren't physically together.
I do. I mean, at least in the discussion groups, I think the only time I felt a lull was, right after lunch when everybody they have eaten and they're a little, but as far as like from both groups, because they have never met personally, I feel like Dava and the Northern, Virginia Nava, or how, I'm always mispronouncing their name, but together, I felt like they were interacting with each other. People were enthusiastic. They wanted to know more about each other. They were really engaged in the discussion questions. I don't know. I felt like it was, I know this is like the way of the future for right now. And I feel like it was a very positive thing. I don't know. I felt like it got us new faces, new perspectives. And with Delaware being, as small as it is, it's giving us now the opportunity to branch out and connect with these new faces and hopefully, continue this kind of trend in the future.
That's great. Richard, thank you so much for your input, and thank you so much for participation.
Thank you for everything. You guys did a wonderful job. We're looking forward to next year.
Yay. Great. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to kick it, and I've just got another quick screen here. And again, this is just a sample of what it looked like in the beginning. And next I'm going to go with, and see, look, that was me, Lori. I've spelled your name wrong there again. Apologies.
It's okay. It's okay.
I owe you a beverage.
Well, I hosted the hybrid conference in Boston in 2018 and 2019. And this year I participated as an unaffiliated individual. And as expected, it was much easier to participate from the comfort of home and avoiding commuting, parking, hassles, as well as catering, people with special dietary needs, scheduling a dog walker, all that stuff that would be required if I had to travel to a physical location where we serve food. And I really liked that there were a lot, I heard 60 individual registrants, since there were plenty of people with whom I could interact. When we were in our Zoom breakout rooms, people introduced themselves and were quick to share their professional challenges and ideas freely. They both responded to questions that presenters provided in the handbook, and they generally spoke about their pre and current pandemic challenges. And during the networking times, Gretchen provided some fun, but not too frivolous or too silly virtual icebreakers that initiated people sharing their experiences, mostly professional, but also personal, like pandemic activities and self-care. And I think we have a photo for that.
We do. This is a fun photo.
So some of the takeaways, even for us jaded conference Zoom participants, simple activities really did work to break the ice. This is also used in person, but Gretchen started us out with the Bud, Rose, and Thorn exercise. And those were self-introductions with the people sharing their name, their affiliation, and role, but also a Bud, which is something that is in progress with them, a Rose, which is something great that's happening, and a Thorn, which is something that is not so great that's happening to them. Other activities that took advantage of the virtual space included changing one's Zoom virtual background to share a favorite place, but it could have also been a favorite activity or food, a hat challenge, and show and tell, sharing something that reflects one's work. So let's see, is there something that we do differently because of what we learned? So although everyone in our breakout rooms encouraged people without microphones to type their responses in the Zoom chat box, I strongly recommend that participants find a way to participate, either using a microphone on their computers or telephoning in, since typing just wasn't as interactive as verbal communications. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm now less averse to Zoom meetings when they are run well. After I lost my internet for a few minutes, because this happens, of course, during conferences, I could not return to my former breakout room, and so I learned that I could gain different and more points of view, which is a benefit to switching people among the breakout rooms for each discussion section. I really liked how our host Gretchen was able to keep things loose and flexible, so that people felt welcome to speak, and they could also, for the introverts, they felt welcome to lurk. It wasn't like we were sitting face to face and there was a discussion question and we went around the room from left to right. I also liked how she kept it loose with ad hoc breakout room hosts, and that would be a person who self-volunteered to take charge by referring everyone to the correct pages in the handbook for the discussion questions at hand. And since these were ad hoc leaders, our discussion topics weren't rigorously enforced. Nobody was called upon, and it gave participants the freedom to discuss things outside risk management, but involving it, like diversity, equity, and inclusion issues that weren't directly addressed by the presenters, and also to talk about pandemic effects and how our organizations are coping. So all in all, fantastic time. And we also shared my 27 weeks of virtual cocktail classes and my shepherd's hat for when I herd sheep, which is similar to herding volunteers.
Thank you, Lori. And so during the individual sessions, I kept the mic and the video live during the breaks and the lunches. So if people needed to step away, they could, but if they just wanted to, eat their lunch or visit, just like you would at a conference, you get the lunch or the snack and you sit down and you just start talking. And it was really delightful to hear from Lori that she has been taking these virtual cocktail classes. And she's got the link down there in case your interest is piqued. It's not a endorsement by any means, but just a fun diversion. And I am actually signed up for tomorrow's class, so excited about that. And then just a discussion about, what do you do in your spare time and hobbies? And Lori started talking about her fun volunteer part-time for fun gig as being a shepherd. And so she was talking all about that, and we got to see some of her partners, shepherd partners, her dogs on screen, and got to say hello to them. But it was just, one of the things that I always feel and come back really energized from a conference is just meeting people and learning about all the different and diverse things that they do. And I know some others on our panel also have some really interesting backgrounds as well. And it's just amazing, heartwarming, all the adjectives to be amongst all of these people. And maybe Alana, if you don't mind, can I call you out and just ask you to share really quickly?
Sure. Oh, you want me to share my side gig?
Yeah.
So my full-time day gig is I'm the volunteer manager at Hospice of Michigan and Arbor Hospice, the largest nonprofit hospice in Michigan. I'm a regional manager of the volunteer program. And on the side, I have a business where I do princess parties. So right now they're all virtual, but so I have costumes and wigs and petticoats and shoes filling up a section of my house. So that comes in handy sometimes because we have pediatric patients, so I'll do visits for them. But beyond that, for my business, I do a lot of birthday parties and big events.
Thank you for sharing. And I will say that just, from what everybody shared about their experience today, I just appreciate so much how diverse our field is. And people have used all of these different skills and backgrounds and related it into engaging volunteers, which is, kind of what it's all about. So pretty exciting stuff. Thank you very much, Lori and Alana, for sharing that. I had reached out to several folks who weren't able to come, and Megan Maloney from Los Angeles, California, who participated in the host site in Dovia, LA, in Los Angeles, had some things to share too. And she really liked how upbeat the conference was, and the music and the background music. And some of her thoughts was, that risk shouldn't paralyze you, and that giving that thought to risk management should hopefully enable you to experiment. And that was one way she thought that, being able to take risks through a pilot program was a really great idea and concept. And something that Megan has as a takeaway was that she was in conversations with her CEO about our risk management policies. And, she was really forthright to say, she really wasn't versed in what our insurance policies and statements say. So I think that was also something I heard in some of the other table discussions where people like, I really don't know. And so that's a good thing to go and ask and find out. But she's going to be doing that, and she's going to be investigating if she does need to revise and revamp, and looking at designating an appropriate person to handle all of that. So another great outcome from the conference, and that was certainly a way for us to kind of enhance that learning, because that's what it's all about. And one of the presenters that really resonated with her again was with Jennifer's presentation that made her rethink about soft risk, and it's everywhere. But it doesn't have to be scary. It just means you need to sift through everything at your organization, and it gave her a good perspective. So again, great input from Megan, and I just thank her so much for sending that back in. And she sent her regrets that she wasn't able to be with us today. One of the other things that we were able to do, and I just want to give a quick shout out because some of those folks might be representative on the call. No, not this time. Oh yes, they are. But I did not share for the Canadian sites, and I apologize for that. But for live, through the generous sponsorship of Better Impact, our recipients for this year for the emerging and exemplary leaders are going to be given cash awards in recognition of their excellence and contributions to the volunteer programs. And we've just updated our site, and so you can go and check out all the amazing things that these people had done to be worthy of recognition by their peers. But we got a total of 50 50 submissions. And we even had to call in some board members to be judges. We had a total of 4 ties within all of these categories. So just super inspiring to be able to read these nominations, and we're so happy to be able to recognize these folks. So just again, a shout out, and I think many of you know some of these Impact Award winners. And I will say, part of what Alive and our mission to do is to, hold up our peers, to be able to give them some national exposure and an opportunity to present at a national level. So again, I thank Richard, Alana, Brenda, and Lori for being able to do that with us today. And I know FISA is a past recipient last year of the Impact Award for the Volunteer Management Professionals of Canada, and then also Karina is a past recipient from last year also, and as is Brenda. So recognizing leadership, I think, fosters more leadership, and that is definitely one of the goals that we wanted to do with the Impact Awards. So next, I'd just like to move into just a quick Q&A session, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So first, I'm going to ask all the panelists if they have questions of each other. And then in the meantime, if any of our attendees have questions for the panelists or for the other attendees, put that in the chat box and make sure we'll bring that out. So go ahead and unmute yourself, panel, and ask away.
So Gretchen, 2 things. One is, it was pretty awesome to be on the call, albeit virtually, for our Becca Hand to be honored as an exemplary leader. That was pretty cool. It's different in that virtual sphere than it has been last year, where we could really get excited and streamers and make a lot of noise. Scott, of course, had applause ready to roll. And I don't know if Becca, if our recipients were underwhelmed by it. I don't know. We were kind of excited, but we haven't done enough, I don't think, to really promote from her being in the house with us at the time. And my question is, Richard, I would love to chat with you offline on that partnership that you developed with the other Dovia, if that would be cool.
That would be wonderful. I'll put my contact in the chat box and we can set something up.
Great, thank you.
Fantastic. Any of the other panelists have a question for any of the other panelists? And I don't see any questions coming in on the chat box. So I'm going to give us all the gift of, got a few quick announcements, but we'll be ending in just a few minutes early. Wanted to announce the topic for next year is diversity, equity, and inclusion, real solutions for the real world. And we'll be taking RFPs if you're interested in being a presenter. And again, part of what Alive wants to do is to lift up leaders and give people a platform to be able to share their skills and expertise. So we'll be looking for those requests for proposals for presenters in February of 2021. And then the registration will open for host sites in April 2021. Based on the feedback that we get from our evaluations, we're going to try really hard to provide that individual experience as well this year. I think that worked well. And just a little bit about this, this topic. And I just, again, I want to thank again our sponsors, Better Impact, and then our partners with VMPC. So last year at the conference, our topic was all about the future is now and how technology is impacting our role as volunteer engagement professionals and how that impacts volunteers. And at the time, we had already been discussing 2 topics. And so we decided to do a vote. So in 2019, we voted on 2 topics. So one was this year's topic about risk management. The number 2 topic we had already discussed and that was voted on that got 2nd place, and then we're very close, was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it still amazes me that we were just spot on for both of those topics, that they're just turned out to be so incredibly relevant and timely. And I do see a question from Faiza, who is on as a presenter, or as our panelist. So again, a round of applause for Faiza, thank you. But she has a question for all of the panelists and wondering, what does next year's theme evoke for you?
Well, I can start and just say that's what I was hoping the theme would be. And then I'm so excited. And wow, how prescient of this group to have anticipated both of these topics. That's really incredible. So I'm just really excited about it. I'm hoping that I think that a lot of us are already examining that aspect of our programs in light of recent events. So I think to have a forum to really compare ideas and results with other professionals across our industry is going to be just invaluable. So thank you in advance. I look forward to loving it.
Great, thank you. How about you, Brenda?
So when we learned that this is next year's, everyone said, oh, we wish it could be this week's conference. On the one hand, fearful that by next year, everything is going to be old news, but maybe we can bring to the table great advances, great progress, and insights into maintaining, continuing. Yeah,
exactly. And I think I also felt that same way. It was like, oh, gosh, I wish we could have presented on this too sooner rather than later. But this is something we all need to be paying attention to. This is not going to go away. So I really like what Alana said. This is a great way to compare ideas and results. Richard or Lori, how about you?
I was just going to say, I'm so excited. This is one of the big things I have a smaller volunteer program, but it's one of the things I've been really trying to just grow out, because I love like people learning from people, people sharing from people, different ideas, different representation. I think when we bring it all together, that's the most powerful volunteer or just even program in general we can have. So I'm just so excited. Like I said, I wish it was tomorrow too. And I'm just so excited to be able to attend this next year and learn so much from it. And I don't know, I think it's the best topic you guys could have picked.
Fantastic, thank you. Lori?
I can't wait. I think it's wonderful that it's next year, because we can finally get beyond the rhetoric and see what people have tried and what the response has been. And I want to actually learn about people's challenges and implementation, because on paper it all looks great. And we've definitely, it is rubbing people a certain way, the way like their mask wearing is politicized. Just bringing up this topic is rubbing people interesting ways, and we're getting unexpected responses, both extremely positive and extremely negative. So I think as we all try to roll it out, we'll definitely be able to help each other do this in a way that it's meant to be. to actually be inclusive of everybody. That this is not just a problem that will be dealt with one time with the hiring of a person who's responsible for it, and then none of us will have to think about it ever again, which is traditionally what's been happening.
Right, exactly. Thank you very much. Faiza, hopefully I bet that answered your question. Our panelists were right on the ball. Great work, everybody. And a great comment from Brenda was the Tulsa Live developed their DEI statement earlier in this year. And one of the things I know we've been talking about with Alive is, and this is probably, was it a thing before? Maybe, but there is, you can hire a consultant to come in and, look at your program. So maybe that's one perspective we'll talk about what that might be like. And Karina says that she's looking forward to hearing from the diverse voices, and looking at, most of the speakers have all looked outwardly very much the same over the years, even though they all bring vastly different experiences. And Faiza says, it sounds like case studies and practical examples would be welcome topics. I totally agree. And that they have a lot of local associations are looking at revisiting their DEI statements, which is good. And Alive has also done so as well. And a great idea from Lori, another shared resource. Absolutely, for next year. Well, it's just about on the hour, so I am going to follow up with my final slide. And again, just want to thank my panelists, Richard, Alana, Brenda, and Lori, for being a part of this today, and just so appreciate your participation in the conference itself and today. And to all of you for being a part of the conference, thank you. And if you weren't, I hope this gave you a little snapshot of what the event was like, and definitely piqued your interest for next year. And with that, I will sign off and say thank you to everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Cheers.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.